So at some point, we're all going to have to admit that Twilight was a fluke, and Robert Pattinson actually can act. High Life is a science fiction drama that follows a group of criminals on a spaceship headed towards a black hole to see if they can harness its energy. And while that is the basic premise, this movie's about so much more than that. A big theme in this movie is human nature and what people will do when they're placed in certain situations. I don't want to go into plot details too much so as to ruin the story, because discovering what the story's about and all the little details is one of the best parts of this experience. This movie's not going to be for everybody. It's an extremely slow burn. That doesn't mean it's boring, but it is a slower paced movie. On top of that, it's not told in chronological order at all. The movie really bounces around all over the place time-wise, and can sometimes be kind of confusing to tell what's going on at any given time, much less what's going on with the overall story itself. But I feel like that was a deliberate move by the filmmakers. Much like the characters in the story being disoriented by the long-term effects of their setting, we the audience are disoriented in the non-linear way in which the story is told. This is a movie that you really have to pay attention to, but if you do, everything will end up making sense in time. This movie does not hold your hand in the slightest. It treats you as a smart individual, and we as viewers are not really used to that with most movies. There's a bit of hand-holding in just about every movie we watch, but High Life's not about that shit at all. There's no hand-holding here one bit. If you're not paying attention and focusing on this movie the whole time, you will be lost. And by the time the end rolls around, you'll be wondering what the hell just happened. But if you do pay attention and you watch this movie, you are in for an extremely interesting, deep, affecting tale that I really enjoy. The acting on display here is top notch. Everybody involved does a fantastic job, including the aforementioned Robert Pattinson. I feel like Pattinson gets a bit of a bad rap because of Twilight. Admittedly, Twilight is kind of synonymous with his name at this point. I mean, it is where he got his big start, and it is what a lot of people know him from. His performance in those movies wasn't what I'd call great. Honestly, I don't really know if I'd even call it good. But regardless of what you thought about his performance in those movies, since those movies, you cannot deny that this guy has proved to us he can act. And not only can he can act really damn good. Between this, Good Times, The Rover, and all the other movies he's made really since then, this guy has proved to us time and time again that Edward Cullen is not the best that he can do. And here's no exception. He does a fantastic job here. His performance is subtle and yet very evocative and extremely captivating from beginning to end. While everyone involved does a fantastic job, he definitely carries this movie. If this isn't the best performance he's ever given, it is definitely in the top 5. On a side note, Andre 3000 is in this movie. I didn't even notice it was him until after I'd already seen the movie and looked it up on Wikipedia. But yeah, he's in this, and like everybody else, he does a fantastic job. Visually, this movie is stunning. And not just because of some big flashy special effects. No, it's mainly the cinematography that shines here. The effects do have a role to play in that as well, though. But more on those in a second. The cinematography here is a visual treat. I mean, everything you expect to look great looks really good too. Like all the space scenes and all that, it looks real trippy and cool, and it's just really a treat for the eyes. But even the simple, subtle shots inside the ship of a hallway and someone walking down it are just perfectly framed and just beautiful to look at. This movie's just shot beautifully all around. The special effects here look really good too. They are for the most part pretty simple, which I'm assuming has something to do with the budget, but they do look really good nonetheless. I do think that simplicity has a part to play in how good and realistic they look. Like we find in movies a lot of the time, when creators don't have all the money that other bigger projects do, they're forced to get more creative with what they do have and end up with something amazing. I honestly don't know what the budget of this thing was, so I don't know if that's what they were going for, but it certainly looks like it. Case in point, in the beginning of the movie, there's a little scene of a guy outside of a ship repairing something. During said repair, he accidentally drops his wrench or tool or whatever it is he has. We see the tool fall off the side of the ship into the black abyss. Now, as far as I could tell, none of this was CGI. It looked like it was filmed just on a soundstage that was totally black, with the exception of this one part of the ship that was lit. It's a little bit different depiction of space than we're used to in movies. Instead of it being littered with stars everywhere, it's just pitch black. And really, it gave you a bit more of an uneasy feeling than you usually get in these space movies. You truly get the feel of one wrong step and all is lost. Also, upon seeing the tool drop, I thought to myself, they're in space, the tool shouldn't drop, it should just kind of be there. But then I got to thinking about it, and that's not really true. Because the ship is moving forward, he dropped the tool off the back of it, so it didn't really drop. Just from our perspective, it looked like it was dropping. So it was technically more accurate than we're used to seeing in movies. Either way, it looked real. A lot of the other effects in the movie are more practical and based around set design, which the sets here all look really good. Now granted, they are pretty simple because they're the inside of this basic ship, but they look very believable. None of it's too far-fetched to seem like it's way, way, way out there in the future. It seems like something that could exist right now or in the foreseeable future. As I said, overall the effects are fairly simple, and there's not really a ton of them because this is more of a drama set in space and less of a space movie with some drama in it. So the vast majority of it focuses on the characters and the people on this ship. So everything up to this point has been great about this movie. But there is one thing about it that I don't think is going to sit well with everybody, and that's the ending. I feel like the ending of this movie will be very divisive amongst its viewers. I don't think there's going to be a lot of middle ground. You're either going to have the people that absolutely loved it, or you're going to have the people that just couldn't stand it. And admittedly, I can see both sides. Upon my initial viewing of the movie, I did feel a bit unfulfilled with the ending. My initial reaction was that I was let down. After such a great movie, the ending just kind of left me saying, what? However, after thinking about it a bit, I did come to realize that the ending does tie up the story arc that's been going on all along. I think the thing that's going to throw a lot of people off is that it kind of starts another storyline right there at the very end. And there is a part of you that wants to know what happens with that new arc. But that's not what this movie's about. This movie's about the arc prior to that, and it does tie all that up and finish it. And yeah, it finishes it by starting a new one, but that is kind of how things work out in life. You close out one chapter to start another. And this story was about that first chapter. And we probably won't ever get a follow-up to show what happens in that next chapter. But hey, that's what the power of imagination is for. After all said and done, I really like this movie. I do realize it's not for everybody, but for me, I really enjoyed it. It got me to thinking and made me want to talk about it. And that's a good thing when a movie can do that. If you're looking for a really interesting story and don't mind the slow burn, then High Life is absolutely worth a rent. You gotta pay attention though, because if you don't, you'll be totally lost. So there it is, guys, my review of High Life. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a thumbs up. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.
Break the laws of nature. You'll pay for it.
I try not to, but every time I hear the guy's name, I just think of this. I'm sorry. It's just... It's going to take a while. We're getting there, but it's going to take a while.